Sorry about that. So, we already got past part one. The part one was going through the fundamentals of a LAN and WAN and some computing fundamentals. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump into chapter four, which is part of part two. I made a error on the slide. Do apologize about that. So let's go ahead and jump on it. So, first part of this chapter four, it talks about accessing the Cisco switch, or maybe it's Cisco router in that case, right? Accessing the CLI via console or SSH. All right. As you guys can see, this is just examples of a switch, right? And to be more granular, this is Cisco's 2960XR catalyst. Okay. Right. And so that switch that we just saw, right? It typically has a console port, right? Every network infrastructure device theoretically does have a console port or a port to where we can get to the device of some sort, right? And so let's talk first about that console cable. Console cable, Mo, I gave you one. Nelson, I should have gave you one. Nick, I'm sure you got one, right? So it's either serial, right? Serial to USB, right, to where it uses a rollover adapter, or it's straight up USB to Ethernet, right, or to RJ45, as they say, right, and it goes into the device, right, and we go ahead and first get into user mode, and boom, we're in, right. Without getting granular, of course, there's different things as far as AAA and putting a username and password. We'll get into that later, right. The core of it is how do we access a device through a console port, right? We use a console cable, okay? And I think I may have pictures. Yeah, so here we go. So the Fortinet cables that I'm sure that I gave you guys, Mo and Nelson, if you look at the picture on the right, that's an example of the new updated rollover cables, right? So real simple, one connection. The one on the left, old school. I'm sure Nick knows about this one, right? So this is
don't want to see those again.
Exactly, right? So this is, the one part of the cable. The other part is the male portion that plugs in the other side of this. So where it's the male version of this that goes all the way back to a USB.
There's no PCs have serial ports anymore.
Exactly, right? And so this is all we had. But luckily, everybody's upgrading. They're creating new technology, and we got the cable on the right nowadays. Okay, so different console connections, right? We got a rollover cable, right? Serial port to RJ45. Just like Nick said, PCs don't have serial ports no more, right? So that's way, way outdated, right? So we move to switch 2, right? So a USB cable, right? And this is where the rollover cable comes in, right? USB cable, right? USB port on one side, right? And the USB converter, which is that male version of that male part of the serial port, right? That goes into the female part of the other side of the rollover cable, right? And then that rollover cable goes into it converts to RJ45 to go into the console port of the switch, right? Kind of phasing out, but of course I still got it just in case, right? Because some switches act funny. But now I still got the new and updated USB cable to USB console, or the RJ45, right? They do have a USB port to USB console. I've seen that on a lot of Aruba switches and Arista switches. Actually, yeah, my Aruba switch that I have right here at the house, they do have a mini USB port, but they also have a console port that use RJ45. So there's different ways to access the CLI, to access the switch or the infrastructure device as it regards to Cisco using a type of console cable. Okay.
Yeah, don't even get into the B series chassis. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I wanted to take a screenshot of this excerpt, right? So you guys know, and I know for a fact that folks on the network team, that you guys, this will make kind of sense if you guys are a little bit new to this, right? And I had to learn this honestly almost, 2 or 3 years ago, because I thought it was just instantly, hey, you plug it in, it'll automatically download the drivers if it's Windows and whatnot, Linux, do something else, right? But when using USB options, you typically need to install a software driver right? So that your PC's OS knows that device or what have you. And it's not each one, but it's, you want to just go ahead and go like, find out, hey, where did I get this from? See if it installs, etc. With the USB, the new USB cables, right? They come. What I just found out by a CCIE that I met at my training 2 or 3 weeks ago is that the ones that we have now, the Fortinet ones, right? The USB to RJ45, there's drivers actually built in, so that when we plug in, it automatically installs, right? So that's pretty sweet, But you don't need to know that for the CCNA. Just
FYI, some of those cables are the CloudGenix cables, and they're the same.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The orange ones. That's right.
Yeah, the orange ones are the CloudGenix ones. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. So yeah, just you guys know, of course, if it's not working, right? Again, use the OSI model, layer 1. Go ahead and see if you need to install some drivers or what have you. Okay. All right. So the best part, in the nitty-gritty, right? How does the console port look, right? So we have two options. We have the RJ45 port, right, that says console, or, right? And again, we're looking at a 2960 XR switch, and I love this model because, again, it's showing both types, right? The other type, of course, is using the USB console cable, right? Mini B, right? What a lot of our Blackberries used to charge it, right? So USB on one side, USB on another side, it can actually access the console, the CLI using that as well. So that's how that looks, okay? Right here is very important pieces, especially when you're trying to access the console. And I'll add a quick little excerpt, but I want you to just know this for the exam. I'll give you guys a tidbit, of course, when you guys are in production or working on the job, what have you. So where it says key topic, these are the basic settings you want to have when using a console cable, right? Or has Cisco calls a PC serial port, right? Of course, like Nick said, PCs don't have serial ports. Since we have rollover cables now, what have you, these settings still apply, right? 9600 bits per second, no hardware flow control, 8-bit ASCII, right? No parity bits, and one-stop bits. Now, let me make a quick point. This is just for the rollover cables, right? And if somebody can mute themselves, I kind of hear some talking. There you go, Nelson. I got you. So this applies to the RJ45, the USB. This applies to the RJ45 rollover cable setup. To the USB on one side and USB on the other side, this does not apply. There's different settings that apply. But let me show you what I mean. Let me go ahead and pull up Putty. Here you guys go. So if I switch to serial, right? So we have different settings, and actually this one goes actually into a little bit more detail, right? So we're connecting via serial line, right? Console, we're referencing that port, right? If you go to device manager, you'll be able to tell what it is. And we see these different settings are mentioned in the key topic. We got our speed, 9600, that's default. The data bits, right, is 8, and that's the 8-bit ASCII that it's talking about. So wherever it says data bits, it means the 8-bit ASCII, okay? The one-stop bit, of course, that's it. No parity bits. It's already done by default. And I know I don't want you guys to get confused, right? But what this means is the no hardware flow control, it's off, right? It's completely off, right? So this is what it looks like. If you want to take a screenshot, go ahead. But that's what it looks like within Putty. If you guys use TerraTerm, any of the programs, it's typically going to have these default settings that we see right here. So just take note of this and understand what these default settings are, because they will mention it on the exam. Whoops. And of course, this is how it looks within Linux, or Unix box or what have you. It has those default settings, like I said. Okay. So we talked about console. Let's talk about Telnet and SSH. Now, to let you guys know, we're going to talk about this at a CCNA level, and it's going to be high level coming from me. It's up to you guys to do your due diligence, read the book, and do extra research. But we're going to keep this at a high level, and let's go ahead and jump on it. So, from a CCNA level, right? As you guys can see, there's a difference between the Telnet client trying to access infrastructure device, and the SSH client trying to access the infrastructure device. Mo, what's the difference?
The difference between Telnet and SSH?
If you're looking at the screen.
Oh, it's just security. One is encrypted and one is unencrypted.
Absolutely. Right. And so, right, and it's exactly what Mo said, right? So if Nick, right, is trying to Telnet into infrastructure box, right? If he's using Telnet, what it means by unencrypted data is if somebody, right, wanted to capture Nick's session as far as his Telnet session, they can see exactly what Nick's typing in, right? Meaning his username, password, what he's configuring, these commands that he's sending from his terminal session, right? All the way to the box, and actually just log the entire thing and say, oh, I got everything that I need to get inside the box using Nick's credentials. Okay. Versus an SSH client, right? Just like Mo said, it's encrypted data. So if Ryan wanted to go ahead and he used, right, a more secure way, just like Mo said, security sense, he uses SSH to go ahead and access the infrastructure device. All that traffic is going to be encrypted. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, I wanted to do this at a high level. I didn't want to jump too in depth. Do your own research, do your due diligence, but just know the difference for the exam. Okay. Exactly what I explained earlier, right? So a hacker will be able to see that. A hacker will be unable to read data if we're using SSH. Okay. And that's it, guys. Right. And that's it for today's session. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Guys, I'll go ahead and end this session and go ahead and upload this to YouTube for you guys to take a listen to. Hope you guys have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.